Ever wish you could like snap your fingers, poof, new server appears. Okay, maybe 100 servers.
Yeah, the cloud gets us pretty darn close.
It does. And that's exactly what we're diving into today. We're talking Amazon EC2, specifically how to wrangle a whole herd of these virtual machines using, what else? EC2 Fleet.
And this isn't just clicking a button to summon a computer horde, though that IS part of the fun.
Right. Sounds kind of chaotic otherwise.
It'd be a mess. The real magic here is the automation and, the really fine-tuned control it gives you over those cloud resources.
So for someone who's heard the term EC2 but maybe hasn't become an admiral of the cloud yet, what's the core idea to grasp?
I like that, Admiral of the Cloud.
Gotta have goals, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So think of it this way. EC2 is like renting a supercomputer on demand.
Yeah.
Instead of having to buy and maintain this beast yourself, you just rent it.
Makes sense. So then what if you need not just one of these virtual machines, but like a whole squadron?
Squadron, I like that. That's where EC2 Fleet swoops in.
So instead of setting each one up by hand, it's like having I don't know, a digital shipyard to order up your custom fleet. Sticking with that analogy.
I'm into it. And that's where you get the real cost savings, the efficiency. See, EC2, it has different pricing models. You've got spot instances. Think crazy cheap, but they can vanish if someone else needs them.
High risk, high reward situation.
Exactly. Then you've got your on-demand instances, more reliable, but they can cost you a pretty penny.
So it's that classic trade-off, saving money versus knowing your computers will be there when you need them.
An EC2 Fleet lets you blend those instance types within your fleet. It can even snag those bargain bin spot instances when they're available, then seamlessly switch to on-demand if needed, all while trying to keep you under budget.
Now that's some smart cost optimization. Sign me up.
Could save you a bundle compared to just using on-demand all the time.
But before we get ahead of ourselves, one thing I found interesting with EC2 fleets, an EC2 fleet request can't be split across different subnets within the same availability zone. Why is that?
Ooh, good catch. That gets into how AWS structures its whole infrastructure. Think availability zones as separate data centers within a region, subnets, divisions within those zones.
Okay, so if the availability zone is like a country, then the subnets are the states.
Exactly. EC2 Fleet being confined to one subnet within a zone, that's likely intentional. To maximize that network performance, minimize latency, keep those computers in your fleet huddled close for speed.
It's always the little details that reveal how the whole system works,
It highlights that even though EC2 Fleet makes cloud management easier, you've got to have some understanding of these building blocks to really use it well. Don't worry, we'll unpack those as we go.
So for those listening who are thinking, EC2 Fleet, that's my new best friend, give us a scenario where this would really shine.
Oh, tons. Let's say you're about to launch a website, maybe a new game, expecting huge traffic, but you don't want to pay for a server farm 24/7 just in case, right? EC2 Fleet scales your server capacity up, down, based on demand. Smooth user experience, and you're not breaking the bank. Or imagine you're a research team, got these massive data sets. EC2 Fleet spins up a powerful, cost-effective cluster, speeds up your analysis, then winds it all down when you're done, just like that.
So it's all about having the computing power exactly when you need it, no manual labor required.
Exactly.
Now that we've had a taste of what EC2 fleets are capable of, let's switch gears. What do you need to know before you even think about launching one? Almost like prepping for that rocket launch, you could say. It's funny, we talk about the cloud like it's this, I don't know, mystical thing. But really, it's all servers and cables and blinking lights somewhere.
Oh yeah, a whole lot of engineering going on behind the scenes.
Exactly. And to stretch that rocket launch analogy a bit more, we can't just hit go without making sure we've loaded the right blueprints, right?
Spot on. EC2 Fleet, it's powerful, but it needs directions. That's where launch templates come in. Think of them as those detailed blueprints you mentioned.
So we're talking operating system, what software is pre-installed, any specific settings. It's about making sure every server in your fleet is identical, right? Software, setup, the whole shebang.
You've got it, like a cookie cutter, but for cloud servers. You bake, or I guess configure, that perfect cookie once. Launch template replicates it, no headaches, especially when you've got a whole fleet to bake.
And consistency is key, especially at scale. But something tells me we can't just hand EC2 Fleet these blueprints and say, go build, without some serious authorization.
You're thinking like a true cloud security pro. Before EC2 Fleet can even glance at those blueprints, it needs permission. And not just any permission, this is high-level access control, granted through what AWS calls IAM roles.
IM roles. Okay, now it sounds like we're giving secret agent identities to our cloud
Wow,
services.
I like where your head's at. Imagine it's a special ID badge, right? Grants access to certain rooms, your AWS resources within a super secure building. Your AWS account wouldn't want just anyone wandering around in there.
Definitely not. So it's all about making sure EC2 Fleet only has access to what it needs, nothing more, to do its job building and managing our fleet.
Exactly. And there's a specific service-linked role, super important for EC2 Fleet. It's called, ready for this? AWS Service Role for EC2 Fleet.
Catchy.
Bit of a mouthful, I know.
It
But
is.
basically, it gives EC2 Fleet just enough permission to launch, terminate, even just tag your instances, and that's it.
AWS service role for EC2 Fleet. I'm going to write that one down. Okay, so we've got our blueprints. We've given EC2 Fleet its security clearance. Anything else before we hit go on this fleet creation?
One last thing, but it's crucial.
Yeah.
User permissions. Even with all these safeguards, we got to control who on your team can interact with EC2 Fleet itself. Different levels of access within our digital shipyard, you could say.
Like, you don't want interns launching fleets willy-nilly.
Exactly. Got to have some order. Right. So it's about layering those security measures, keeping everything locked down tight. But now I'm curious, if we've gone through all this prep work, how do we actually tell AWS to put it all together? Is there like a big shiny button in the console that says Create EC2 Fleet?
I gotta say, part of me is a little surprised there isn't just a giant red button in the AWS console, you know? Launch the fleet! Air horns, confetti!
I feel you. It does make it seem more official, right?
Right, like we've assembled this whole launch sequence. We've got our launch templates, those server blueprints, the IAM roles for security, user permissions locked down. But to your point, how do we actually make this fleet happen?
Well, you bring up an interesting point because this is where EC2 Fleet throws a bit of a curveball.
No giant button, what is this? The Dark Ages. Smoke signals. Carrier pigeons.
Not quite that old school. Look, a point-and-click interface. It seems simpler, but EC2 Fleet goes a different route. And honestly, it gives you way more control. Instead of being stuck with preset options, you get to define every little detail of your fleet, usually in a JSON file.
JSON files. Okay, so I know those are for storing and sending data in a structured way, but how do they work with EC2 Fleet?
Think of that JSON file as your direct line to EC2 Fleet, like sending a super specific order to a high-tech workshop. You're saying what kind of virtual machines, how many, operating system, any software you want preloaded, budget limits, the whole 9 yards.
So it's almost like programming, but instead of writing code, I'm configuring the whole fleet through this JSON file.
Exactly. And the good news is, even though that JSON gives you tons of control, AWS has great documentation. You can even generate a sample JSON with all the possible parameters. It's like a master template you tweak.
Okay, that makes me feel better. I can see how that level of control would be amazing if you're managing these really big, complex deployments.
Oh, absolutely. It's that balance, right? Easy enough to use, but if you're experienced, you've got the tools to really fine-tune things. But we can't forget, our fleet's out there now, sailing the digital seas.
Yeah.
And like any good fleet, it needs some maintenance.
Right. Even the fanciest ship needs someone keeping an eye on things. What does fleet maintenance even look like in the EC2 world, though?
2 words, health checks, and then spot instance replacement. So health checks first. Picture EC2 Fleet as this tireless overseer, constantly checking on your instances.
So it's making sure those virtual machines are running smoothly.
You got it. Every 2 minutes, EC2 Fleet is checking the health status of every instance in your fleet. Is it responding to requests, any network issues? It's all about catching those problems early.
2 minutes. That's impressive. Why so often, though? Is the cloud really that unpredictable?
You're catching on. The cloud can change fast, network conditions fluctuate, and remember those spot instances, the cheap ones. Someone outbids you, they can be interrupted. EC2 Fleet's got to stay on top of all that.
So it's like a safety net, right? Spot instance gets pulled away, EC2 Fleet tries to grab another one, and everything keeps running.
Exactly. Spot instance replacement in action. It's EC2 Fleet saying, don't worry, I got this. And that constant monitoring the replacement, that saves so much time if you're running something that needs a certain number of servers up all the time.
That peace of mind would be priceless. But, okay, let's say our project's done, data's crunched, virtual ships have sailed around the world. What happens when it's time to retire our EC2 Fleet? Bittersweet moment, I imagine.
Like sending off a well-loved ship, right? But no worries, it's actually really straightforward. 2 main options. You can terminate your instances, basically like hitting the power button on all those virtual machines.
Yeah.
Or
We could set them free. Let those virtual ships just sail off into the sunset, knowing we're not responsible for them anymore.
I like it. That's option 2. You delete the fleet request itself, The existing instances, they keep running. You'd manage them individually from then on.
I like it. Simple, clear choices. But I'm guessing AWS have some documentation in case we hit any snags during deletion. They always do.
Oh, absolutely. They've got your back.
Yeah.
Error codes, troubleshooting steps, it's all there, like the instruction manual for your digital shipyard.
Gotta love good documentation. Anything else we should watch out for with saying goodbye to our fleets? Any limits, quirks?
One thing that's kind of interesting, there are limits on how many fleets you can delete at once. Those instant fleets, the fast ones, it's 25. For the more configurable ones, the maintain or request types, it's 100.
So even in the cloud, you can't just instantly dismantle a whole armada of servers, probably for the best.
Exactly. Those limits are there for a reason, prevent accidents, make sure things run smoothly for everyone using EC2 Fleet.
Wow, well, this has been quite a journey learning about EC2 fleets. We've gone from setting everything up, those launch templates, IAM roles, to the nitty-gritty of health checks, spot instance replacement. We even covered saying goodbye to our virtual fleet.
It really has been a deep dive, and there's one thing for our listeners to take away. It's that EC2 Fleet is powerful, no doubt. But like any powerful tool, it takes some planning. Got to learn how to use it right.
I'm with you on that. It's not a magic button solution, but if you're managing lots of cloud stuff or want to automate your infrastructure, EC2 Fleet's got huge potential. Efficiency, cost savings, and knowing your fleet's being taken care of, can't beat that.
Well said. On that note, I think it's time to wrap up this deep dive.
Until next time, may your fleet sail smoothly, your servers hum happily, and may all your deployments be efficient.